Hello and welcome to Firearm Freedom. This is going to be another First Impressions video. In today's First Impressions video, we are taking a look at a very cool pistol, which is the 4006 TSW from Smith & Wesson. And really quickly, guys, I just wanted to let everybody know that we just recently hit 10,000 subscribers here on the YouTube channel, so I could not be more happy about that. And as promised, since we hit 10,000, we just released our official Firearm Freedom merchandise store. So if you guys do want to support the channel and get some really cool t-shirts, some really cool hoodies and stickers, go ahead and click on that link below, and hopefully soon when it becomes available for my channel, we will have a merch shelf at the bottom of the video for everybody to check out. I was able to pick this 4006 Smith & Wesson up for a crazy good price, and I just simply could not turn it down. This pistol came with 4 magazines, and it was obviously used because they do not make these pistols new any longer. I got this guy for about 360 bucks, and to me, that was a steal. I've always been in love with the older steel frame Smith & Wesson pistols. Now, you guys know, especially if you know me on a personal level, I'm not a huge fan of 40 caliber guns. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad cartridge. I would just much prefer a 9mm option over a 40 caliber option. So why exactly did I purchase this 40 caliber Smith & Wesson? Well, if you're going to go with a 40 caliber, this is probably the best 40 caliber pistol that you could possibly go with, considering the fact that the 4006 pistol from Smith & Wesson that came slightly before this guy was actually the pistol that the 40 Smith & Wesson cartridge was designed around. So if there's anything that's going to shoot that cartridge well, it's going to be the 4006. And guys, I got news for you, it absolutely does. This is probably the smoothest shooting 40 caliber pistol I have ever shot in my life. In fact, it recoils much like a full-size 45 ACP. And if you're familiar with the 45, it has quite a bit more of a push than a snap, and that's the case here. Generally, a lot of 40 caliber pistols, they have a very snappy recoil to them. And if you've shot a lot of 40s, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, ever since I used to watch X-Files when I was younger and saw Scully and Mulder have 5906s and other really cool steel frame Smith & Wesson pistols throughout any other 90s law enforcement movie or TV show, I was in love with the steel frame series of pistols. The 5906s have become much more available as of recently. You're starting to see a lot more trade-ins come in on the market, which is awesome to see. What makes this 4006 TSW so interesting in Smith & Wesson history and also becoming more collectible is the fact that this pistol was never made for the civilian market. It was actually reopened. They had previously closed down the line of Smith & Wesson steel frame pistols before this gun was made, and the California Highway Patrol had actually M&P 40 pistols. And if you guys are familiar with the M&P series, it's just their full-size standard polymer frame gun that pretty much everybody's used to seeing now. Well, from how I understand it, the California Highway Patrol actually did not really like that gun. They really loved the steel frame Smith & Wesson pistols and were requesting Smith & Wesson to reopen the design program to create not only a 4006, but also have an integrated rail system, which in the early 2000s was really kind of the way that every pistol was going. So Smith & Wesson actually did reopen the design process and made a 4006 with an integrated rail, called it the 40 Tactical or the 4006 TSW, and this model also has a decocker only feature. Before this, there were other options out there on the market in this lineup that kind of had like an afterthought of a rail kind of screwed in on the bottom, and it really wasn't too great. The California Highway Patrol just recently retired these pistols, and that's why you're seeing them flow onto the civilian market now. But I got news for you guys, they are already drying up. So if you do want one, I'm already seeing prices raise to about $400+. So now is definitely the time to get them. Speaking of the magazines, unfortunately, since they are 40 cal magazines, they are only at 11 rounds versus the 15 round magazines that come with the 5906 series. Now, what's interesting about these magazines is that it almost appears that they are pinned at a lower round count, but this is actually the design of all of the 5906 and 4006 magazines. They have this pressed-in piece here at the bottom. To be honest with you, I couldn't tell you exactly why they have that on the magazine, maybe to prevent the spring from being compressed too far or something of that nature. The California Highway Patrol 4006s will always be marked by a really interesting note in the serial number. You'll notice the CHP in the front of the serial number and 4006 TSW. So any California Highway Patrol gun will be marked CHP. This gun is all matching, which is what most of them will be on the market. These guns generally are in great shape. However, you will notice some, in this case, this one that has a really chewed up right-hand side of the grip, and that's simply because whatever officer had this before me, probably was a right-hander, had it in the holster a lot and was just dinging up the grip either on the car or other gear and everything like that. But as far as the metal components, I got really lucky in the fact that there's very, very little wear at all here, not even much holster wear up at the top, and luckily because it is stainless, you're really not going to see a lot of those really minor scratches or anything like that as you would on a blued gun. The moment that I put the very first round downrange in this gun, I did not want to stop shooting it. It was such a blast to shoot, very, very accurate, and the trigger pull is phenomenal. Now, I wish it did have slightly larger capacity magazines. 11 rounds just went by way too quick. But as far as the actual shootability of the gun, it was phenomenal. Different than any other .40 caliber pistol than I had ever shot. The double action trigger pull is obviously going to be slightly heavier than the single action, but it's still very, very smooth. Now, the one thing you will notice is without the magazine in the gun, it unfortunately has the plague of the assault weapons ban era, which is the magazine disconnect safety. I am not a fan of those at all. I wish it did not have that, but we can go ahead and insert in a magazine to feel that double action trigger pull. You got a little bit of stacking, but it is overall very smooth. Not bad at all. In the single action mode, you'll notice the reset is really insane about this gun. You guys really got to pay attention. Ready? Oh, right there, and then your brake again. Let's go ahead and see that reset one more time. Right there, and then the brake. Guys, that reminds me almost like a SIG short trigger reset. It is absolutely phenomenal. If you guys have felt any other steel frame Smith & Wesson pistols before, they are all the exact same way. The resets are great, and honestly, I wish Smith & Wesson had continued this line. I think they could have made a killing in today's modern age with a really good steel frame pistol like this. This particular model does have a bobbed hammer, and that is specific to the 4006 TSW. The standard 4006 does have a spurred hammer in the back. When the pistol is in single action, it will have a hammer that is visible, and since this model is decocker only, which I would prefer, you will lose the hammer as soon as it goes back into place. Now, the one thing I did notice when I got a little bit of a bite when shooting this pistol is this very large slide catch slash release on the left-hand side of the pistol. Now, this is awesome for doing reloads, but you'll notice it does come out fairly far. And when you are doing mag dumps, the recoil is very, very minimal, but I was not really paying attention and my hand slightly slipped forward, and as the gun was pushing back, I got a small little bite on the web of my hand because the corner is very, very sharp when the gun is recoiling. So you're going to want to make sure that instead of really letting your hand drift forward, you go ahead and pull it back and keep it back so that way it stays out of the way of that catch, because it will get a little bit of a bite. Aside from that, I experienced no other issues when it came to shooting. You have some really nice checkering up here in the front. You have undercuts right where they need to be. Like I said, guys, there's a lot of really amazing features about this gun. The only place that I would have to hit this gun would be in capacity. If it had 15-round magazines, I would say this is a phenomenal choice for a modern-day defensive handgun. With only 11 rounds and the size and weight that this gun has, it might be lacking a little bit in the defensive department. However, if you did want a more affordable gun to throw in the truck or have in the house in a different drawer aside from all your other home defense guns, this might be a great choice. And the fact that you can install your modern day lights on the end of this Picatinny rail is just phenomenal. As far as for the sight picture, you don't have those really iconic adjustable rear sights that you see on a lot of the earlier Smith steel frame pistols that I absolutely love. You have standard Novak cut sights. Now these sights are obviously able to be swapped out. I didn't really feel the need to do that at all. The decocker is ambidextrous, which is a nice feature, and the magazine release, although very intuitive, is a little bit tiny. So you're gonna have to kind of get used to that. You may have to maneuver the pistol in your hand slightly to really fully depress it. Now you do have a really nice, slightly flared magwell that makes reloads very easy to do. Another really interesting feature that you will see about the 4006 is the big, ginormous tactical logo on the slide, which I just find awesome. I'm not really interested as much as where this pistol came from in its law enforcement history. I just think it's a very, very interesting piece of Smith & Wesson history of their steel frame line, because this is one of the only pistols they made that was in this exact configuration, which is very special to me. I've heard on forums, I don't know if there's any actual truth to this, but I have heard that there are still some Smith & Wesson 4006 TSW pistols in training academies in California that have seen round counts of about 100,000 rounds and are continuing to go without fail. I fired 250 rounds through this gun at my first impressions range day and obviously had absolutely no issues whatsoever. I have no idea how many rounds were fired through this gun before I got it in my hands, but I can tell you it's probably seen a high round number, and I have seen absolutely no signs of major wear and tear or signs of the gun expiring soon. This gun seems to run like an absolute tank. It seems to be built like a tank, and I think this was a definite win from Smith & Wesson. As far as for magazine availability today, unfortunately there is no aftermarket magazine manufacturers that I have seen for this pistol yet. I tried to check Metgar and other places and I couldn't seem to find any. So it looks like you are stuck with the Smith & Wesson magazines that can be found on the used side for about $29, and I have seen them new for about $38, but these magazines are not as available as you might think. So if you do plan on shooting your 4006 a lot, you may want to stock up on magazines. I got lucky in my case, so I didn't have to buy any magazines extra. That's pretty much going to wrap this first impressions video up, guys. This is a phenomenal pistol, and I really never thought I'd be getting a 40 caliber on my channel just because I'm really not a huge fan of them to shoot at the range or to keep for defense, but I absolutely had to make an exception for this guy. It is just so cool and an interesting piece of Smith & Wesson history, and one that I don't think I will ever sell. If you guys have any questions about this particular pistol, go ahead and throw them down in the comments section, and you know I absolutely will get back to you. While you're down there, check out that description. It will have links to how you can support the channel here, and also links to the Firearm Freedom Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram account. On the Instagram account, we do twice a week live streams, so you're not going to want to miss out on those. Also, if you enjoy the content that's coming out here on the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and ring that bell so you never miss out on the videos that I post every single month. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more great videos to come soon.